Trini. Oh my gosh. So the last time we spoke was what? Like Thanksgiving, right? So that was like Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving?
Oh, wow. It's been that long.
I know. My gosh. How are you? First and foremost, Happy New Year. Happy 2022.
I'm amazing. How are you
I'm
doing?
good. I'm good. Definitely, it's kind of crazy how fast February went because I felt like January was like the longest month. So, I felt like definitely getting into the swing of 2022 was a little bit harder than than I anticipated, maybe most. But no, definitely so happy that we get to connect and just do what we do and just like vibe and just talk. But yeah, so like you've been jet setting. What have you been up to?
Oh, I am. So just towards the so last year, I think when it was Thanksgiving, was I in Florida? Was I in Florida
Yes.
or
Yes.
so I spent some time in Florida and then went to the Bahamas and I was there for a couple of months and then recently got back to the States and just really taking it one day at a time and on this journey of entrepreneurship, consulting and having to provide for my next check has been a journey. But then also just really seeing a shift in this gaming space where, a couple years ago there was this like, yeah, we're going to do this and this, and we're all about equality, we're all about equity, we're all about this and this, and like it's like, oh, the pandemic hit, we made a lot of money, now we need to scale, now we need to build our team. It's not focused on our marginalized ethnicities and genders anymore. Where
Yeah.
and so as far as like in gaming, I still think that there's a huge need to address the systemic cracks within our system, and then also really thinking about what does the future look like. I also have an augmented reality company, and it's called Mr. Augmented, and it's not gendered. It means mixed reality, augmented, and
Love it.
just really like, okay, so cryptocurrency is a thing, blockchain's a thing. The world
Mm-hmm.
is moving super fast in certain areas, but I also think that like even in those areas, I was just on a panel to talk about equity in the metaverse. Like we have to start thinking about that now and think about the disparities of even like how to get into the metaverse. Like, are we going to make it
Yeah.
accessible through our cell phones? In a way that and where you don't have to have 5G. All right. Like if we're really looking to scale something globally, what does that look like? So just all these different, so there's constantly a lot going on in my head. And I'm heading to Denver, to ETH Denver today. So I'll be in Denver for Ethereum Denver conference, and, Polygon, Flow, Coinbase, all these companies are going to be there, and it's interesting. I'm so interested in seeing like what is the dynamic. Like I feel like the space
Mm-hmm.
is unbalanced, right? Like, and it's like who has access, who knows. Even though this space is also one where a lot of people are willing to share information. Like I think this is the
Mm-hmm.
one opportunity for our communities that if we can get in and get past our fears, we can possibly have some ownership.
Yeah, no, definitely. And let's talk about Coinbase. Did you see that commercial yesterday during the Super Bowl?
I was on a
So,
plane.
oh, okay, got it. So, anyways, like Coinbase, like, let me just give you guys like props for that commercial because, first of all, like, it was very engaging because you were like, what is going on? So, basically, you were just following like a QR code the whole time, but you didn't know what the QR code was to, and it was to Coinbase. So, props to Coinbase for a really impactful marketing tactic during the Super Bowl. Did you get a chance to see any of the commercials or even watch like the halftime show?
I saw like bits and pieces of it pop up on my feed, like,
Mm-hmm.
and I heard it was just an epic halftime show, which I mean, I'm not from California. I spent most of my life in like I'm not from California, but I've spent most of my life in California. So like I
Mm-hmm.
consider myself from California, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
born in New York, raised in California. So there we go. Born, raised. And to see just even, and that's sort of like it's a mesh of my New York and my California with Mary J. Blige being
Right.
there. So I was just like, and I'm just like, I just have a couple of like concerns because like Corrupt and Daz weren't there. Warren G wasn't there. Like there's just a couple of people who I'm like,
I
obviously
know.
Tupac is dead, but there should have been like a tribute to Tupac if there wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like I know that there was a tribute to Nipsey, but like
Mm-hmm.
don't forget the Bay Area, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
We still need, a little tell me where to go and Ghost Ride the River.
Yes, yes. Oh my God, no. But yeah, I was definitely dancing along and singing along. It was pretty epic. It was funny because my parents were like kind of watching me and Joel just like vibe in like the corner during the halftime show, and they were just like watching us like, do they even do? How do they know all the lyrics? How do they know these dances? And I'm like, let us have our moment right now because this is like so our vibe.
I
So
love
yeah,
it.
no,
I
it
love
was pretty epic. I think that was the first time I ever like truly watched like the Super Bowl like from start to finish. So that was definitely something historical for us to do as first timers, like really just watching it from like start to finish. But because of the fact that now I've had like a background in like brand marketing, I was totally critiquing like all of the like the commercials and everything, not only for like the messaging, but also diversity and inclusion, right? Because that's always our lens. So, that was definitely something that I was like looking out for. I'm really happy that we're connecting because I feel like this year we've both talked about it. It's very transitional, right? We're very transformative individuals, like in our spaces and in our industries, and I think that this was honestly like what we needed to have happen like post pandemic to kind of just like highlight what was really important to us, right? We've talked about this like so much, and I haven't quite like announced it, but there is a new chapter coming for me, and I'm really like excited for it because I feel like I took the right time for me, myself, and I, and really prioritize what's important to me this year. And I have to say thank you for, just like being my sounding board and just being my inspiration all the time, for making these really life altering decisions that sometimes I go back and forth on. But, taking a page from you, just need to focus on me. I need to focus on like my health, my well being, and, just creating space for what's important and what we're passionate about. So I will announce that soon. But yes, there is a new chapter coming for me. But I did want to talk to you because I think both of us have definitely experienced that it wasn't the easiest process to get to where we're at, right? And because of the fact that we've also been in the DNI space, but also kind of seeing like what the recruiting space looks like, right? And I do have some things I want to talk about and get your opinion on, just because, yeah, it's a candidate market, and I know we had like what the Great Resignation or the Great Transition or whatever other terms, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on those things. Like, let's just like I don't know, like rewind back maybe like a year. What do you feel this environment has looked like post pandemic or even in this pandemic in terms of recruiting and diversity and inclusion and how that ties together in these big companies?
So I just sent you a text because when you started talking, it brought me up to this post that I saw on LinkedIn that was talking about the glass cliff assignments. And it says a glass cliff assignment is one in which a Black leader gets promoted into a role that company leaders do not expect to succeed long term, and that requires borderline heroics. There are several types of glass cliff assignments. Number one, unimportant. The company may feel, and this was written by Byron Lewis. Shout out to Byron Lewis. The company may feel pressured to create it or maintain a specific role, but the role is not important to the company. So it has no power, no resources, an insufficient team. When the Black leader fails to make progress, they are scapegoated. And so, then it's number 2, impossible. The challenges are great and the tools are few. The goals attached to the job have a 50-50 or less chance of being met. If the Black leader succeeds, they are rewarded with praise, but not always money or opportunity. If they fail, they are labeled as failures and their careers begin a steep decline, while white male leaders can fail multiple times and get opportunities to try again. Number 3, controversial. The Black employee, sorry, my Slack is on fleek. The Black employee asked to lead a body of work that is inherently difficult and comes with built-in resistance. The work may be countercultural or come with a high reputation risk. If the Black employee doesn't have incredible strong relationships, they will not be successful, since relationships are often the only force that overcomes cultural barriers. There you have it. I'm tired, but you needed to know this. We know when it is happening to us, but we often want the benefit of the promotion, so we take it, hoping we will persevere. If you read this and it disturbs you, analyze your decisions through this lens and make sure you're not perpetuating this dangerous phenomenon. I'm turning over all the soil and digging up the weeds. We can do better than this. Oh, so it was posted by Tara J. Frank, equity activist. Byron reposted it. So that's, I think, essentially what you're talking about, and what we're essentially is the gist of it is that, what is it called? That glass cliff. Like, there's a lot of opportunities, but really being a D&I practitioner and professional in this space, you have to gauge, like, how much are they invested in this? In the beginning, when I was younger, I was just like, great, I got a program manager role. I'm in it. I'm doing it. I'm great. And then, but when you start to climb up the ladder and you start to see the strategy, or you start to see some of the barriers or hurdles that you're experiencing, it's like, wow, like, am I really doing this because they're invested, they're behind me? Like when you think of the NFL and you think about how much the NFL like makes money off of Black culture, and but what, 90% of probably more than 99% of the NFL owners are generational white men, you know what I mean, and their families, like, and there's really no desire to change that. Like, how do you know, we could celebrate the one Black owner, right? But what does it take for him to actually impact that culture when he's the only in that space? And so you think about us being in this space, and sometimes we are the only one in the room at that level, at that table, saying, no, this is not okay, at the risk of your job, at the risk of your reputation, at the risk of being gaslit, you know. By most of my gaslighting has been by white women, you know, and so it's like, how do you then say, I want to promote and empower, you know, this space, when you don't even have HR's like
the support. And no. And it's so interesting that you brought this up. I don't even know how the conversation happened yesterday, but me, my mom, Joel, and my stepdad, we were kind of talking about just like some career, I guess, like obstacles that we've all faced, like in our lifetime of what we consider like our corporate careers, right? And it's so interesting because like my mom was talking about situations that, one, she never mentioned on her resume. Two, I just didn't know anything about, probably because I was like too young to really like understand it. And then I also told my tales of, you know, like, let's face it, like some nightmares in the recruiting world, and some nightmares being an applicant, and, you know, and all of that. So it was just really interesting to also see the generational, you know, struggles, right? So, for example, I was telling my mom, and I'd never told anyone this, but I actually, once upon a time, when I first started getting into like a corporate career, I had an offer rescinded. And it was because I asked too many questions before I signed my offer letter. Okay, so like just background. I think I literally just finished college. I was applying to like my first, I want to say like startup tech company or whatever. And it wasn't anything like super big or anything like that, but it was definitely something influential and something that I knew would be like a good stepping stone for me, right? So I remember getting this offer, but I never understood what PTO was, what sick days were, what vacation days were, like just all of these things. So it was coming at me like hot in like an offer letter. So I went back to the HR person and I was like, can you explain these things to me? And she started explaining it via like email, but I could tell that she was becoming really frustrated with me. Like, what do you not get? And I'm just like, please understand, this is like my first real, my real corporate job. So I do have questions and I just want to understand. And I remember the last question she asked me was like, oh, well, we're, going to try to create a very like comfortable environment for you at your desk. So are there any office supplies that you think that you're going to need, like for your ergonomics or anything like that? So I was like, well, sometimes I get like a really bad pain in my wrist. So maybe one of those like mouse pads that has like a wrist, like a wrist pad. I still remember until this day. She sent me an email saying like, my God, you're asking for so much. And I'm like, you asked me like if I had any questions. You asked me if I had any requests. So I felt like asking for like this mouse pad was like not a big deal. Literally 24 hours later, like I get a message saying that they rescinded my offer. And I asked her like why, and she said because you asked way too many questions.
And that is when I talk about equity, I talk about that. How are we setting our new grads, the people who haven't had a parent or an aunt or uncle who's been in this space up for success, and being gracious and having patience and allowing them to ask all the questions in the world because we care. Like I mean, that angers me because at the end of the day, that's exactly how engineers, people in operations, anybody feels going into tech because we don't know. So it's like, and you feel stupid asking about a 501k. You feel stupid about asking about like, is this a good RSU? Is this a good equity price? Like, so then our communities, which are not good at sharing information either, right? Like, then have to take the mantle of how do we bridge that gap instead of the company being responsible to bridge that gap. And so that's something I think is huge and that doesn't get talked about enough.
I know. And it was so interesting because like I said, this is like how many years later, right? But then I think back to that moment and I think back to every other position that I had after that offer got rescinded, which by the way, obviously, like, thank you for rescinding that offer because why would I want to work for a company that doesn't value, like their applicants, like asking questions, you know what I mean? Like you should be gracious enough to answer those things. But anyways, like after I had, basically gotten into like the corporate world and everything like that, I started to see a pattern where I was scared to ask questions. So whenever I did get an offer letter or whenever I did get, like a verbal offer, let's face facts, I just took it because I was way too scared, way too fearful of, oh my God, what is going to happen if now I push back a little bit or I ask anything. So that comes to another interesting post on LinkedIn. We've been seeing a lot of very interesting posts on like LinkedIn and Twitter lately. And, it has to do with recruiting and D&I and everything. But anyways, I remember seeing that, people of color definitely sometimes have that fear or have that, that notion that, no, I can't ask questions. I can't negotiate my salary. I can't negotiate for better benefits or anything like that because it's that fear.
It's because of your experience, and then that experience trickles down into how you teach your children and your children's children. Let's talk about that. Like, we don't have the generational equity of knowledge, so then we're just using our lived experiences, which are tainted because that's not everybody's lived experience, and that's not every company. So I don't want throw the baby out with the bathwater and say that every company is like this. But
Right.
at the same time, you having that experience and wanting to protect your children and protect those who are in your environment, you're going to tell them, hey, this was my experience, so don't do this. So then then we go in with all these preconceived understanding and notions, which then hinder how we even operate. We're going in with already imposter syndrome. We shouldn't be there. Second, we're going in with like a fear of doing something that could get us fired, when it's just like, and that's some people's lived experience. Like they've like literally, they just can't be themselves.
And that's, like I said, that's so interesting that, like, we're able to talk about this, because I honestly, just real talk, January was not the best month for me. Like, just mental health wise or whatever, I was dealing with, recruiters ghosting me, or just companies that I've been interviewing like with or whatever would take, my God, like maybe 6 or 7 like rounds, and then you just wouldn't hear from them ever again, or the feedback is like just like something generic, like a copy and paste, and then you're like, I gave you all of me and all I got was like a copy and paste. You know what I mean? And you can tell it's a copy and paste because there's nothing personal about it. And then you're like, okay. And again, this is kind of like where all of these different posts on LinkedIn were definitely hitting me in a different way, just because now I'm living that, again, that lived experience, and going back to once upon a time when little Abby, who was applying for her first corporate job, and then it got rescinded because she asked so many questions. But I told myself that because of the fact that I am in this space, that I feel like I've had like a good amount of really supportive like leadership, and just really just supportive individuals, that now I can speak my mind on certain things and just have that be more received, right? And I know that there's still a part of me that still is that little girl that's a little bit scared, but at this rate, it's almost like, what do I have to lose? Because the only thing that I can do now is basically also educate this individual on the other end, who could be a new recruiter, someone new to diversity and inclusion, and you're also educating them with, with how to basically be a better practitioner in your space, right? And that's something that I was dealing with definitely like in January. And like I said, blessed to have the leadership that I had that was basically like encouraging me to apply for new roles, to use my talent and my skill set, and just make sure that it matches like my long-term goals. And, I thank God, like, am going on to like a next chapter, but I'm seeing day in and day out people posting on LinkedIn that they're getting ghosted, that they're being treated like, especially like, in the initial rounds of interviews, like feeling some kind of way. And that individual on the opposite end, as in recruiting and HR, you have an obligation. You have the right to basically change that person's perspective on things. And it's not, recruiting is not just something you just get into. And that's something I'm going to just like say until I'm blue in the face. If you are not passionate about people, if you're not passionate about making that proper relationship work, candidate, client, please, not right now. Like, especially right now, but just don't be in the space of recruiting if you're not going to do the best of your ability to really make that connection and really make sure it's a long lasting relationship. I say that with passion because did you see that viral post about the candidate who accepted an offer that was $40,000 below what was budgeted because the recruiter just felt like,
oh,
well,
yes.
Like, yes, let us talk about that. Let's talk about that.
That actually is, I like, just like we say, there's a small place in a big place in hell for women who don't help other women. I think that there's like a place in hell for recruiters who just like, they're like, that's their bad. No, that's the equity. I go back to the equity piece. Like, there was a post that counter to that, actually, that also went viral, where
Hmm.
they were talking about offers, and in the moment the candidate was like, oh, I don't know what to, and it, like, the Zoom went off, and the recruiter called her and said, this is the bands, this is what you need to do. And they're like, oops,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, Zoom went off, we, and so she actually, like, purposely cut off the Zoom to call the candidate and say, no, girl, this is what you need to do. And that, to me, is, there's a hero there. There's a hero there that cares about the community, that understands that there's disparities, that understands that we don't know all the answers. And that's another thing too, is like, there's been this, like, shame on people exposing their salaries. And I think it's because of, it started off in shame of, like, I don't know if I'm getting paid well, but you exposing that, well, and then other people being willing to expose that, is to show the disparities with, or lack of pay equity. And then also, is our allies and people who care about this community share, then we're able to really know what the bands are. And as we have recruiters who do care about the community, who are like, these are the bands at this place, so if you're not getting these bands, you're not, stop protecting capitalism, stop protecting these new forms of slavery and inequity.
I did not see the challenge of that first like viral post, so I'd be so interested to see what that one was about, because I definitely read before the person took it down on Twitter all the different things that were being said to this said individual. And like I said, I'm not here to scapegoat anyone or like name names or whatever. It was just like super interesting because, again, as someone who was so passionate about recruiting like once upon a time or whatever, when I was like in that space in like my career, I I was named, like someone gave me like a nickname of like a fairy job mother. And I took that to heart because I was like, well, now that you gave me that nickname, like I feel like I have to live up to that, and I had no problem like doing that because I really was passionate. I always told myself that I want to do the complete opposite of like the worst recruiter that I ever like encountered. And I know that I would be successful. But then, being in the opposite side and being an applicant and then going through like the interview processes in what is considered to be a candidate market, I was so shocked to see how certain things were carried out. And again, like not here to badmouth anything, but it's just you start to observe these behaviors. And then you're like, so when dating, you hate it when you get ghosted, but you're going to ghost, your potential candidates, for this role. And for what? Like because you can't send any type of follow up, like, the position was canceled, they decided to go a different route, but just don't disappear. These are people's livelihoods that sometimes, like, is being truly like affected, not to mention health and well being. Okay. I've been seeing so many posts, and you just want to give virtual hugs to these applicants, especially on LinkedIn, because, sometimes they don't have the type of connections that are necessary to have, successful reach outs or anything like that. And sometimes they're fearful to even just say like hi, like on like LinkedIn or any type of forum. And, that's something that I also want to talk to you about because I feel like you're such a great practitioner of like connections. Like let's, let's talk to like our audiences about how to build those connections, even if you're somewhat an introvert or extrovert, whatever, like how you can make those really impactful connections, especially like right now when it's totally necessary. Oh, you're on mute.
If you're an introvert, I think it could be a little bit more of a stretch, but like you do have to sort of sit with yourself and say, okay, like this is my favorite thing to talk about, which is, you've heard me say this, is like, what's your genius? Like, sit down with yourself, be present, and say, what's my genius? What when I put my hand to it, it turns to gold. It transforms. It lives, and it's easy for others to to see that life, because it's definitely a genius that I have. I think some people are like, oh, I don't have a genius. And like, I'm just like, no, we all have a genius. We all have something that we were put on this earth to do. And it could also be your passion. Like, what is your passion? Is your passion engineering? And what part of engineering? Like, what do you focus on, and how do you thrive in that space? And so once you sit with yourself, create a little blurb that comes from your heart and comes from the depths of who you are, and say like, hey, I'm Trinidad Hermita. I love building equity through empathy. I love empowering people, and I'm a connector. I'm like the human blockchain. I would love to talk to you because I see what you're doing in this space. I love to engage and glean. If I could just have 15 minutes or 10 minutes of your time, I'm positive that you'll see my passion throughout this conversation. If you're not available, is there someone else in your network that you think I should reach out to? And a lot of times, like, if you give them that out, of being unavailable, they will connect you with someone, and they'll even do the introduction. If they don't do the introduction, they'll at least connect you, and you could say, so-and-so asked me to reach out to you. Like, and just to be honest, it might take 100 tries, and you get that one that changes your life, right? Like, or that one that's like, wow, we really connected, and we have an opportunity here to grow. Excuse me. So like, I do think there's a lot of opportunity in these spaces.
Yeah, no, and I totally resonate with that, just because I remember the first time I met you, you spoke on a panel, and I was like, I'm a little intimidated by this woman because she's so powerful and she's so inspiring, but whatever, I'm going to just suck it up and go up to her. And I went up to you and I was like, wow, the panel that you're on was just like so amazing. You're amazing. I would love to connect, and look where we are now. You know what I mean? And I just remember like that little fear, but then I was like, screw it, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go like say what I need to say to this woman. And you have been such, like a great presence like in my life. And I would not even have had that had I, been that little scared, individual, and not, said what I need to say and make that connection. And that's definitely something that I feel like on LinkedIn, please, anyone watching this, please connect with us. Like, we want to help and empower those individuals that, definitely sometimes do not have a voice in anything, like that they're doing or what they're passionate about. And, even with all these layoffs, that you're seeing from all these like big companies, like, Peloton, and then there was Zillow, and, just my heart goes out to, those individuals who were impacted by it. But I love how people rallied, like, especially they're like, hey, I'm in recruiting for so-and-so company. I see that you're part of, this huge layoff. Like, I may not have any personal positions that might be, a fit for you, but please, like, let's connect and let's see if we can find something for you. I love those people. Like, I genuinely am like virtually hugging each of those individuals who are taking the time to just say, hey, I'm here. We may not know each other, but maybe there's something I can do. And I'm just a huge advocate of that. Like, let's all help each other succeed. Let's stop this whole like, oh, I'm jealous of this person's career and I'm not going to do anything to help them thrive. If we all thrive, that will be all the better in this world. And I think that that's just something that we all just need to get good with. Like, there is enough room at the table for all of us to sit, okay? And make that positive change. And I think that that's what's super inherent to me, super important to me for 2022. Like, if you're not here to support me, I'm going to ask you why that is, but then we're just going to keep it moving. We're going to keep it moving. We're going to keep it pushing. Like, I am not here to give all of myself to anything or anyone that does not deserve my energy. And that's just like what it comes down to. And I strongly encourage anyone who is watching this, who is struggling with, how to make those connections, how to build those connections, or how to even apply for that job that you're just a little bit fearful of applying to, just do it. And yeah, just,
I I posted
yeah.
something on Instagram, which was very similar, which was like, you know, I'm gonna just start telling people, I don't think that's a part of my journey today. Like, I'm not drawn to it, and doesn't seem like that's where I'm being led today. Like, you like
Mm-hmm.
my way of saying, um, it's a no for me, dog. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, exactly. I love that. I love that. And
because it's like, and that's another thing though. It's there's so many things that come out at us on a daily, let alone um, being from a marginalized gender and background, like having the pressures of not only society but of your culture and all these other kinds of things, then to have someone in your life who just is a taker or who just wants what's going to benefit them. And it's interesting because, you know, living in Silicon Valley and being in the Valley for as long as I have, like in and out over time, I realize that it's produced a lot of blood sucking vipers who just really, and when I mean the Valley, I mean the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, of people, even people of color and marginalized genders. It's like, ooh, where do you work at? What can you do for me? And
mhm.
it's like, you haven't even gotten to know me. I don't know if you're even a good person. And I'm down to open doors for people. But I do think that this generation lacks thankfulness and
Mhm.
gratefulness
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
ability to understand that what someone is doing for you
Mhm.
and how to and bless them for what they're doing. Because like
Mhm.
it does take time. I know you do this, Abby, and I do this as well. Like it takes time to sit with someone for 15 minutes to have an informational, and then to like, I've had people who are just like simple. They're like, hey, thank you for the 15 minutes. Here's like, I know it's small, but here's a $5 Starbucks gift card. And I was like super shocked, and like, and not that I need anything to do anything that I'm doing. I do it out of love, and I'm not asking for anything. But that like thank you note, or that just like, hey, thank you for your time, and recap of what you talked about makes you know that it was a time well spent, and that you want to spend it again, and that you're
Mhm.
open to meet with that person again because of what, you know, how they responded, and they respected you and your
Yeah.
time. And like
Yeah.
just to hit up someone and be like, hey, I see that Niantic has a $1 million fund, you know, how do I get some money out of it? Like, okay, do your research first. Then, you know, then, you know, if you're seeing blockers or challenges and you have questions, like, yeah, I worked there. I helped create that, and I know a lot about it. So yes, I'm here to help
Mhm.
you. But at the same time, understand that it is not, I am not obligated to do anything. Like in that, and anything that I do outside of that, like lack of obligation is
Yeah.
because I care about my community. I care about you. And if you don't appreciate that, and all you're trying to do is get your nut, you know,
Mhm.
your
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
that is something that with older age I've been able to track down quicker. When I was
Yeah.
younger, I was definitely gullible and just like, oh yeah, let me help everybody, you know, because I want
Yeah.
everybody to
Yeah.
win. And then I ended up exhausted. I ended
Oh,
up
yes.
out of balance in my life, and I had to really step back and be like, is this really something that the community is appreciating and engaging in? And one thing that, you know, growing up with my background, like my mother and my father were always like, you have to be thankful, even if it's a card that you send in the mail that just says that card costs 10 cents, that stamp costs 35. Like, you know, like you literally just like, I mean, what cards cost 10 cents now, but you can, you know, literally like $1 something, right? Under $3, you can send someone a card in the mail or send them an email with like, and take that $3 and bump it to 5 and send them just a gift card from Starbucks or whatever. So, I don't know if you drink coffee, but they have tea and
Mhm.
everything else there. Here
Mhm.
you go. Thank
Right.
you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for your presence. All of that. And I know that we're running out of time, but that's just something that I want to leave our audience with is like be gracious. Watch your approach because your first impression can be that lasting impression. And I think that that's something that, Trini and I have both resonated with. Like, we are so open to meeting new people and connecting with people, but it's the approach. Don't be like, hi, I would like this, and you're like, who are you? Like, can you tell me a little bit about yourself first? Just think of it as when you're initially meeting someone, how are you going to treat that person? That's how you also need to resonate with them on social media, on LinkedIn, in an introduction email. And we are very open. We want new, individuals like in our community, allies and members, especially in this DEIB like space. Every month, the GGP has a DEI monthly meeting, and we encourage those in this space to come join us. We have our first one coming up for the year this Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Feel free and connect with us if you want, an invite, or you want to invite a specific individual who might benefit from that. We are all about connection. We are all about community. We are here to make sure that everyone is in a happy, harmonious, and successful space. So I know that we're running out of time, but with that being said, Trini, thank you, my love, as always, for creating space in your heart, in whatever room that you're speaking from on your jet setting and entrepreneurship like journey. Thank you so much for taking time always. I love our talks, and I can't wait for it to continue on this year.
Amen. I'm honored. I'm honored to be here and have these conversations with you. And I know that the best is to come, and good luck on your new season.
Thank you. And to everyone, happy Valentine's Day. Oh my God. Hope if you do not have a significant other, that is okay, because self-love is also happy Valentine's Day. So treat yourself, everyone, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Happy Galentine's Day to those.
Galentine's.
All right. Take care.
Love you.
Love you too.